The Lego brick is basically a box which is open on one side and a collection of pegs that interlock into each other. If you look at the length and the width of the Lego brick, you will see that it's 31.80 and 15.80 millimeters. The dimensions come from a 8 millimeter grid size, which is the distance of all of the pegs on top of the Lego brick. And because of each Lego brick has a clearance to the next one of 0.2 millimeters, we have the 31.80 millimeters and 15.80 millimeters length and width. I'm switching now to SolidWorks and starting a new part. Basically, we always have three options: part, assembly, or drawing. Here we will just use a part. And I will now start with a sketch for the box part of the Lego brick. The fundamental principle of SolidWorks is that you draw a sketch, mostly a two-dimensional drawing, and then what's called a feature, extrude, for instance, a box out of that sketch. That's what we are going to do right now. I always have to tell where I want to draw the sketch, and I select the top plane right now. In the ribbon I have already selected sketch. Then I go into sketch mode. One important thing to notice is that the symbol on the side now changed. This symbol where I hover over right now tells me that I can enter sketch mode. That also tells me that I'm in sketch mode now, and also the pressed button on top here tells me that I'm in sketch mode. It's important to be always very sure in which mode you are, because you cannot do everything you want in any mode. So now we draw a corner rectangle, which is the easiest way to draw a rectangle, and we attach it to the origin. And now we'll see little green rectangles which tell me those lines are vertical or horizontal. I close the rectangle info box, and as you can see, I can now move and resize the rectangle, but it's attached to the origin. That's what that little green icon in the left bottom corner tells me. And I can always click on a relation, double click, and say this is called coincident. I could also draw this box completely manually. I'm going to delete it and redraw it in a more time-consuming way. Let's say I'm not able to draw a very straight box. So what I'm now going to do is to add the relations myself. I exit the line tool and click on make this line vertical, that one as well. I can also select two lines at once by selecting the first one just by clicking it, and the second one by holding down the shift key. And now I can say those two lines should be horizontal. Now I've drawn the same box as with the corner rectangle tool. So the constraints limit the freedom of a geometry. Another way of limiting or more defining the freedom of a geometry is by dimensioning it. And I'm now using 32 millimeters because that's the let's say grid size of the Lego brick horizontally, and clicking on Smart Dimension again. So now I'm in sketch mode, in Smart Dimension mode, and saying this is 16 millimeters. Now what I would have to, now you can see that all lines are black. That means it is completely defined. There is no freedom in this geometry anymore. Nothing can move anymore because it's attached to the origin, has vertical and horizontal lines only, and the lines have dimensions. Now I exit sketch mode and say this sketch, it's still selected, highlighted blue, should be an extrusion. And now I could either drag this arrow for the extrusion or say it should be 9.6 millimeters high. That's the height according to the PDF. I'm sorry, I made a little mistake. I re-enter sketch mode again because this is the 32 by 16 millimeters. The box is inset by 0.1 millimeters, so I in sketch mode can always exit sketch mode or double click on the sketch, enter it again. Or right click and say edit sketch. And I want to offset that box, but not 10 millimeters, but 0.1, so that it's in total 0.2 between each Lego brick. And it should not be to the outside, but to the inside, so I have to reverse it. Select chain means that I don't have to select each line on its own. I'm zooming out and zooming in by using the scroll wheel. By holding down my scroll wheel, I can also change the view. And click on the green check mark, so that's okay for the line. And now I want to change the outer lines to construction lines. Construction lines are, let's say, helper lines that are here for reference geometry, but will not be extruded. So right now I have the inset rectangle which I want to extrude. So I exit my sketch mode again, select the sketch, go to features, extruded boss base, 9.6 millimeters, and click on the green check mark. So now I have the box, and I will add now the little pegs. The little pegs are spaced half the grid size from that construction line and are sitting on top of the box. So I want to create a new sketch, clicking on sketch. I click on the top of the box and create a new sketch by clicking the sketch button. Now I can create a circle on top here and dimension it. Clicking on Smart Dimension. This is 4.8 millimeters in diameter. And the center is spaced to the origin by 4 millimeters. And as you move the mouse around, you can select what you want to dimension, which axis. So we are happy with that one, and once more from here to that corner, also 4 millimeters. Now we are finished with that sketch. We can exit it again, and actually there's a shortcut. You don't have to press that button on the right top part of the window here. You can directly go to features and say extruded boss base. Since it's the open sketch, it's automatically the selected one, and now we can enter the height, which is 1.8 millimeters. So now we have one sketch, but we want to have many more, and that's a good use for the linear pattern tool. So I have the second extrusion. If you select any of the extrusions here in the left part of the screen, you can see which one is which. So I select the second one and say I want to do a linear pattern. First, I have to define the direction of the pattern. And one important notice about this, the user interface here, is there's always one part highlighted blue. I can change that by clicking on different elements, and this is the part where I chose now to select. So I want to select the first direction, and I can just use that edge of the Lego brick for the direction. And I want to have as many as possible in 8 millimeters distance. So I don't say spacing and instances, which would mean 10 millimeters now distance and 2 instances, or now 3. I can change the values, but I want to say up to reference, and I say up to this wall, to this end, in 8 millimeters spacing, I want to have pegs. And in the second direction, click on direction 2 in the first box, the other edge, and the same up to reference, now to this side of the box, 8 millimeters. So that looks already quite much like a Lego brick. Now we want to make the box empty. Therefore we will use the shell tool. The shell is basically working like you have, imagine a shoebox, and you point to the faces which should be the opening ones. So first we say which will be the thickness of the walls, which will be 1.2 millimeters. And now we select which face to remove. This one. I can also say that we want to have a preview here, and we can say it also includes the pegs with the shell. So the next thing we want to do are, if we look back to the PDF, those little tubes. So now we say inside here, we want to create those little tubes. So we create a sketch in here and just draw it anywhere. And then I'll take care about the dimensioning. So first of all, we are going to use Smart Dimension again for the diameter. And it has 4.8 millimeters inner diameter and 6.58 millimeters outer diameter. So we first dimension the inner diameter, and we will not need a second circle. I'll show you an easier way to make a tube in a minute. And dimension the tube again. It's relative to the origin. A little bit hard sometimes to get. I did not catch the origin, but the corner of the box. So I click on escape, I abort the command and start Smart Dimensioning again. Zoom in a little bit more. If I cannot get the origin, it's easier to click it on the tree. So now I got it. So it's 8 millimeters from the origin here, and a second dimension. I select it from the tree here again, easier. And millimeters. Now I can extrude my little tube by going to Features, Extrude. And there's one option called Thin Feature. And now I could enter the thickness here, but I will use just the formula. It's according to the PDF 6.51 millimeters in thickness outside, and in the inside is 4.8 millimeters, and half of this should be the thickness. And then I don't want to have a blind extrusion. I want to have a different option. I want it to have the same height as the edge of the box. So I say up to surface and select that surface. Then again, I use the linear pattern tool, but this time only in one direction. Again, up to reference. And I had the wrong box, so I have to select here to which reference, and now it works. So now we have to draw another part, which is this little rib here. We are not going to draw those little small ribs this time, but just that one rib again. And the rib is inset 2 millimeters from the edge, which is not shown in the PDF, but that's the way it is. And the easiest way to do that is to create an additional auxiliary reference by saying I want to include a reference geometry plane, and the first reference for the definition of the new plane is that part, and the distance is 2 millimeters, and I want to have it in the other direction. So in that plane I want to draw the rib. And ribs are working in a maybe surprising way. I just need 2 lines to define the rib here in that case. So I say I have selected that just created plane, click on sketch, want to create a line, and first of all what I want to do is, sorry, I have to do something else in between. I abort that command. I want to have this line and that line as a reference. Or, sorry, again, I'm drawing that rib in a different way. I dimension it. So I want to have a rib. I'm still in the plane from here to there. The yellow box tells me it will be vertical constraint, and then I draw another line, also vertically constrained. I can completely move this around now. If I want to have those 2 lines to be aligned to each other, other word is collinear, I click on both lines and say they are collinear. And then I dimension those lines. Again, I will use the origin, smart dimension from the origin to that line should be 16 millimeters. I now hit the space bar to watch it from, see the whole thing from the bottom, and as you can see, the sketch has still some blue elements. It's not completely defined, but that's okay for the rib. I now say this sketch should be a rib. It has 0.8 millimeters thickness, and a little arrow tells me in which direction it will go. Click on OK, and the rib is finished. So that's one way to draw the Lego brick. Thank you.